The night sky over the colony was supposed to be calm, a blanket of stars unmarred by anything unnatural. But tonight it split open. A burning streak cut through the heavens, a screaming line of fire that turned night into day for a breathless moment. People ran from their shelters, pointing and gasping, but no one dared follow it into the wilderness where it came crashing down. The alien patrols were too close these days, and curiosity could mean death. But she couldn't help herself. The young woman stood at the edge of the colony fence, heart hammering. She had always been different, reckless, some called it, though she liked to think of it as brave. And something in her gut told her this falling star wasn't just stone or metal. It was meant for her eyes. She slipped into the trees, the sounds of the colony fading behind her, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the acrid scent of smoke drifting from the crash site. The ground was scarred, blackened earth leading her like a trail to destiny. She moved quickly, ducking low whenever a distant hum of alien engines pulsed through the night. The forest seemed to tremble with the memory of impact, branches broken, dirt still warm. And then she saw it. The wreckage smoldered in a shallow crater, metal torn and bent into shapes no engineer could ever repair. Flames licked the twisted frame of what once must have been a shuttle or pod, though its design was unlike any she had seen. It wasn't alien either. It was human. Human craft were myths out here, whispers of resistance and fleets lost to the void. Yet here one lay, broken and real. Her breath caught as she saw movement. Half buried in the wreckage was a man. A soldier, judging by the scorched armor fused to his body. He was sprawled across the jagged remains, his chest rising and falling in ragged breaths. She should have turned back. This was dangerous. Helping him would invite the alien's wrath. But her feet carried her forward before reason could stop her. She knelt beside him. His skin was pale beneath soot and blood, his lips cracked, his hair damp with sweat. But what struck her most wasn't his wounds. It was the faint glow pulsing from within his chest. Not from a machine, not from a weapon, from him. Her hand hovered above him, trembling. Heat radiated from his body, but not like fire. It was alive, rhythmic, like the heartbeat of something larger than flesh. She thought he was dead at first, but when her fingers brushed against his shoulder, his eyes snapped open. She froze. His eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the same light she had seen in his chest. They darted around, frantic, before locking onto hers. For a moment, the world held its breath. No words, no sounds but the crackle of flames. Just two strangers staring. Yet in that gaze she felt something impossible. Connection. "Help me," he rasped, his voice raw, barely human in its weakness. She slipped her arms under his, straining to drag him free from the wreckage. He was heavier than she expected, his armor weighing him down, but she refused to stop. Her muscles screamed, sweat dripping in her eyes, but she kept pulling until his body collapsed onto the ground beside her, free of twisted steel. The glow beneath his skin pulsed again, brighter this time, casting light over her face. It wasn't just energy, it was like fire that belonged inside him, threatening to burn outward. She thought for a moment it might consume them both, but when her hand accidentally brushed against his again, the light steadied, softening, as though responding to her touch. Her heart stuttered. What was he? She shook her head. There was no time. The distant hum of alien engines grew louder, searching. If they found him, they'd take him. If they found her with him, she'd share his fate. She had seconds to decide, and in those seconds she knew there was only one choice. She hooked his arm over her shoulders, gritting her teeth as she lifted him. He groaned but didn't resist. His weight pressed against her, his warmth searing through her thin tunic, every step heavy with danger. She staggered out of the crater, leaving the burning wreckage behind, following a path she alone knew, a hidden trail back to her refuge beneath the old ruins. By the time they reached the shelter, both of them were trembling. She eased him down onto the cot, brushing damp hair from his forehead. His breathing was uneven, but alive. He should be dead. Anyone else would have been. Yet he clung to life, and that glow inside him still pulsed like a second heartbeat. She sat back, chest heaving, staring at him. The firelight from a lantern flickered across his face, mingling with the strange glow in his chest. She didn't know his name, didn't know why he fell from the sky, didn't know why he looked at her like she was the only anchor he had left in this world. But she knew this. The night she pulled him from the fire, her life changed forever. And as his eyes fluttered open once more, catching hers again, she realized his life was now in her hands. The silence between them was heavy, electric. His lips parted, a whisper escaping. "You saved me." Her throat tightened. She wanted to say something, anything, but the words refused to form. Instead, she reached out, brushing ash from his cheek. His skin was hot beneath her fingers, burning yet alive. And in that fragile moment, in the silence of disaster, a bond was forged, unspoken, undeniable, and dangerous. He had fallen from the sky, and she had caught him. The shelter was nothing more than a hollow carved into the ruins of an old transport hub, but to her it was home. She had built it piece by piece over the years, scavenging sheets of metal and scraps of insulation, sealing cracks with clay until no patrol could guess what lay beneath the rubble. It wasn't much, but it was hidden, and hidden was survival. Now, as she lowered the stranger onto the cot, the space suddenly felt too small. His presence filled it. His breath was uneven, rasping, but steady. That faint glow still pulsed beneath his chest like a lantern in the dark, making the walls shimmer with shadows that didn't belong. She sat for a long moment, listening to the rhythm of it, wondering what kind of man carried fire inside his body. When she finally dared to touch the torn fabric of his armor, it crumbled in her hands, brittle and burnt. She stripped it away carefully, piece by piece, until she saw the full extent of his wounds. Angry burns spread across his skin, mingling with deep cuts that looked like they came not just from the crash, but from battle. She swallowed hard. Whoever he was, he hadn't just fallen. He had fought before falling. His eyes flickered open again, dazed. He watched her through half-lidded eyes, lips parting as if to speak, but only a dry croak escaped. She reached for her water flask and pressed it to his lips. He drank greedily, water spilling down his chin, before sinking back onto the cot with a shuddering breath. "You're safe," she whispered, though her voice betrayed the doubt she felt. "Safe for now. Safe until the aliens followed the trail." His hand twitched as though he wanted to reach for hers, but exhaustion dragged it back down. She hesitated, then took it herself. His skin was fever-hot, the strange warmth beneath his flesh making her fingers tingle. She almost pulled away, but his grip tightened weakly, anchoring her. The night stretched on. She dressed his wounds with strips of cloth torn from her own bedding, pressing herbs into the burns, trying to cool the fire that seemed to radiate from within him. Each time her fingers brushed his skin, she felt the strange hum inside him steady, as if her touch calmed the storm. And each time she lingered longer, telling herself it was necessary, though the flush in her cheeks said otherwise. When his breathing finally eased into sleep, she let herself exhale, sinking onto the ground beside the cot. The glow from his body painted the walls, bathing her in a soft light. She leaned back against the stone, arms wrapped around her knees, staring at him. Who was he? The colony told stories of resistance fighters, of ships that had once dared challenge the alien fleets before vanishing into silence. Was he one of them? A survivor? A ghost returned from the void? She didn't know. All she knew was that when his eyes had met hers in the crater, she had felt something crack open inside her chest. Something dangerous. The hum of engines outside snapped her awake. She darted to the entrance, pressing her ear to the thin sheet of metal that sealed the doorway. A patrol skimmed above, the alien crafts buzzing low, their searchlights cutting through the forest. Her heart pounded. They had to know. They had to be looking for him. She returned to the cot. His chest rose and fell, each breath ragged but strong. His glow pulsed brighter when the sound of the patrol passed overhead, as if his body recognized the threat. She reached for his hand again, squeezing it tight. "Stay quiet," she whispered, though he was unconscious. "Stay with me." The engines faded into the distance. Silence returned. Hours bled together, her exhaustion tugging at her, but she couldn't bring herself to sleep. She sat watching him instead, brushing damp hair from his brow, adjusting the blanket she had thrown over him. She told herself it was necessity, keeping him alive, tending to him. But the truth whispered louder with every passing heartbeat. She was drawn to him, to his fire, to the way his very presence filled the silence that had haunted her for so long. At some point in the night, his eyes opened again. Not dazed this time, sharp, alert, though heavy with pain. "You saved me," he murmured, his voice stronger than before. She swallowed, caught in his gaze. "You fell into my sky. What else was I supposed to do?" A faint smile tugged at his lips, though it faltered quickly. He studied her, his glowing eyes softer now, almost human. "You should have left me." Her heart clenched. "And let them find you?" "No, I couldn't." "Why?" His voice was barely above a whisper, but the question cut deeper than she expected. She hesitated. The true answer pressed against her lips, dangerous and foolish. "Because from the moment I saw you, I couldn't imagine walking away. Because you looked at me like no one ever has. Because something inside me burns when you're near." But she only shook her head. "Because you're alive. And alive means hope." His gaze lingered on her, unreadable, but she felt the weight of it pressing into her chest. Then his eyes closed again, and sleep claimed him. She sat there, trembling, realizing she had spoken more truth than she intended. The night ended with her curled in the chair beside his cot, exhaustion finally pulling her into shallow dreams. And in the quiet glow of his fire-lit body, the shelter no longer felt like a place of hiding. For the first time in years, it felt alive. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. The aliens would come. The colony would whisper. Danger would only grow. But tonight, in the flicker of his strange, steady light, she allowed herself the smallest spark of something forbidden. Hope, and maybe something even more dangerous than hope. The forest trembled with the low rumble of engines, a sound too steady, too alien to belong to anything natural. The young woman, Elara, pressed her back against a crumbling wall of stone as she listened. The soldier beside her, Kale, breathed in short, shallow bursts, his hand still pressed to the glowing wound that ran across his ribs. The crash had nearly killed him, but even in his broken state, something burned inside him. She had seen men wounded before, but none who carried fire in their veins. "They're close," he whispered, voice rough as gravel. His eyes, dark and unyielding, flickered with sparks when they caught the moonlight. Elara nodded. "The whole forest feels like it's listening. They'll sweep everything." She hesitated before touching his arm. His skin was fever-warm, but solid, grounding her. "You shouldn't be moving like this. If we stay, we die." Kale pushed off the wall, swaying, but his body obeyed him through sheer will. He glanced at her, something unreadable in his gaze. "You don't have to follow me. You could go back, pretend you never found me." She shook her head sharply. "They'll know. If they come here and find nothing, they'll still smell you on me. They'll burn the whole settlement until they're sure." For a moment, his expression softened. Pity, maybe guilt. Then the rumble deepened, the sound of hovering craft sweeping the treeline, sending leaves spiraling. Kale took her hand without asking, his grip calloused and strong, and pulled her into the cover of the trees. Branches slapped against them as they ran. His breath came ragged, each step straining against his wounds. Yet he moved like a man who had spent his life running from fire. Elara followed, her heart pounding as the sky above split with searchlights. "They're hunting you," she said when they paused at a ridge, the glow of alien ships sliding over the horizon. "Not just any human you." Kale leaned against a boulder, sweat dripping down his temple. He didn't answer immediately, only tilted his head back, staring at the stars hidden behind smoke. "I was part of the last resistance fleet. You've probably heard whispers. Ships that fought and burned at the edge of alien space. Everyone thought we were destroyed." Her breath caught. "You were there." "I was," he said, his voice low. "And I'm not supposed to be alive. The fire that saved me, it isn't natural. I don't even know if I'm entirely human anymore." He opened his hand, and for an instant, a faint flicker of orange danced across his palm before fading. Alara stared, torn between awe and fear. That's why they're chasing you. They can't let a man like me live. And now you're caught in it. Before she could answer, a beam of light swept across the ridge, forcing them down into the mud. Kale pressed his body against hers, shielding her from view as the searchlight passed. She felt the solid weight of him, his heat sinking into her. His heartbeat thundered against her chest, matching her own wild rhythm. The light drifted away, but neither of them moved. Alara's breath caught in her throat, her face inches from his. His hand lingered on her waist, steadying her, though she no longer felt unsteady. She met his gaze, and the world seemed to fall away. The ships, the forest, the danger. Only the fire in his eyes remained. Then it happened, sudden, accidental, unstoppable. His lips brushed against hers, the barest collision, but it sent a shock through her body that burned hotter than fear. She gasped, half pulling back, half leaning closer, not knowing which she wanted more. Kale froze, eyes widening as if he'd betrayed something sacred. I didn't mean. She silenced him by touching his cheek, her fingers trembling. Don't, she whispered. Don't say sorry. The sound of engines roared louder, breaking the fragile moment. Kale pulled away, jaw tight, his soldier's mask returning. We have to move. Alara swallowed hard, her lips tingling as though fire still lingered there. She nodded, forcing her legs to follow as he led them down the ridge. Yet inside her, something had shifted. Fear had pressed them together, but the kiss had lit something deeper, a spark that wouldn't die, no matter how hard the aliens hunted them. Above the trees, the ships circled closer, the hunt tightening like a noose. But for the first time, Alara didn't feel like prey. She felt like she was running beside a flame that could never be extinguished. The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the distant hum of alien ships cutting through the sky. Kale sat apart from the fire, shoulders hunched, eyes locked on the flickering flames. His body bore the exhaustion of running, of fighting wounds that refused to heal, yet his mind was elsewhere, lost in a place Alara could not follow. She had seen it before, in the way he stared too long at the stars, as if searching for ghosts. She crept closer, wrapping her arms around her knees, watching the shadows that carved sharp lines across his face. You're somewhere far away again, she said softly. He didn't look at her. His jaw worked as though holding words inside. Then, with a breath like broken glass, he murmured, They won't stop talking to me. Alara's brows knitted. Who? My crew, he said, voice low, raw. Men who burned in their ships while I fell. Friends who screamed over the comms until silence cut them off. I see their faces every time I close my eyes. Hear them telling me to finish what we started. To burn the aliens down, no matter what it costs. His hands curled into fists, trembling with rage and grief. But I didn't die with them. I fell here. Into you. The words struck her like a physical blow. She swallowed hard, inching closer until her shoulder brushed his. You think surviving was wrong. That being alive with me is betrayal. He finally turned his head, eyes burning in the firelight. Isn't it? For a moment, she couldn't speak. Fear and longing tangled in her chest, but she forced the words out, voice shaking. No, it's not betrayal. It's life, and you deserve it. Even if you don't believe that, she faltered, her cheeks flushing, but there was no turning back now. I care for you, Kale. More than I should, maybe. And if you leave me behind, I don't know if I'll survive it. Silence stretched. The fire crackled between them, but his eyes never left hers. The hardness in him wavered, revealing something raw and fragile beneath the soldier's steel. He lifted his hand, hesitated, then cupped her cheek with surprising gentleness. Alara, he whispered, her name breaking on his lips like a prayer. She leaned into his touch, her heart thundering. Then his mouth was on hers, no hesitation this time, no accident, only fire and desperation. The kiss deepened, pulling the air from her lungs, filling her with something hotter than the flames beside them. His arms slid around her waist, drawing her against him, and she clung to him as though letting go would mean losing everything. Passion rose between them, fierce and trembling. Each kiss was a battle against fear, each touch a plea not to be abandoned to the shadows closing in around them. The world outside narrowed until there was only his heartbeat, her breath, the heat of his hands on her skin. But even in the blaze of their closeness, the weight of his ghosts lingered. He broke the kiss, resting his forehead against hers, his chest rising and falling like he'd run miles. "I don't know if I can give you a future," he confessed. "All I have is this war inside me. Love pulling one way, duty the other." Her hands tightened on him, refusing to let go. "Then let me stand with you. Whatever comes, don't shut me out. If we burn together." The night came without stars. Smoke clung to the sky, heavy and choking, masking the heavens as if the universe itself had turned away. Alara sat awake, restless, her head on Kale's shoulder. For once, he slept. His breath was shallow but steady, his hands still curled protectively around hers, even in dreams. She almost smiled at that, at the fragile proof that he was beginning to trust her, to let her in past the walls of grief and fire that haunted him. But beneath her skin, unease lingered. Something in the air felt wrong, too still, too quiet. Then the stillness shattered. The first blast ripped through the colony outskirts, shaking the earth beneath them. Kale snapped awake, rolling to his feet, weapon drawn before the echo had even faded. Alara's heart hammered in her chest as beams of alien light lit up the night, slicing through structures like paper, reducing the defenses to burning rubble. Shouts rose. Panic spread. Kale grabbed her arm. "We move. Now." They darted through the shadows, weaving between collapsing buildings as the alien ships descended like vultures. Every scream carved deeper into Alara's chest, but survival drove her forward. Kale moved like fire itself, every step precise, every decision honed by training. She clung to him, knowing that without him, she would already be ash. But then it happened. A group of colonists burst from cover, led by someone Alara recognized all too well, Commander Darren, the man who had first welcomed Kale into their refuge, the one who had sworn loyalty to humanity's cause. Relief flickered across her face, but Kale stiffened beside her, a predator sensing the trap before it closed. Darren's smile was wrong. "Cold. Hand him over," he said, voice steady even as the world burned. "This ends tonight." Alara froze. "What are you saying?" Kale's weapon stayed trained, his jaw clenched. "He sold us out." The truth came in the form of alien silhouettes stepping out from the smoke, their weapons gleaming. Darren didn't even flinch. "You don't understand. They promised us survival. The colony spared. All they want is him. The rest of us, we get to live." Bile rose in Alara's throat. "You damn coward. You'd trade him, you'd trade us for the illusion of mercy?" But Kale's hand fell on her shoulder, steadying her even as fury burned in his eyes. He didn't speak, didn't curse, didn't beg. He just met Darren's gaze with the silence of a man who had seen betrayal too many times before. The aliens surged forward. Kale fought like a storm, each strike tearing through their advance, each blast from his weapon burning a path through their ranks. Alara tried to stay close, but the tide was overwhelming. They wanted him alive. She saw it in the way they closed in, not to kill, but to drag him down. And in the end, even his fire wasn't enough. A stun beam struck his side, forcing him to his knees. Another blast sent his weapon skittering across the dirt. Alara screamed his name, lunging for him, but hands seized her, dragging her back into the shadows. She kicked, clawed, bit, but all she could do was watch as they shackled him in chains that glowed with alien power. Kale's eyes met hers across the chaos. No words, only that look, fierce, defiant, unbroken even as they forced him down. It seared itself in her heart, that silent vow that even captured, even bound, he would never surrender. Then the aliens hauled him into the ship, the doors sealing shut, his presence torn from her like the last breath from her lungs. When the ship vanished into the sky, the world seemed to collapse around her. She fell to her knees, chest heaving, rage and despair crashing through her in equal measure. Around her, colonists whispered, some in shame, others in bitter justification. Darren was nowhere to be seen. Alara wiped the tears from her face with trembling hands. In that moment, something inside her shifted. The fear that had guided her steps since the day she found Kale in the wreckage melted away, leaving only something sharper, hotter, a fury that refused to be extinguished. He wasn't just a soldier, not just a ghost of a lost fleet. He was hers, the one who had fallen from the sky and into her arms, who had kissed her like fire, who had shown her that survival meant more than just breathing. Fate had bound them together in the blaze of battle, and no betrayal, no alien empire, no war in the stars could sever that. Alara rose to her feet, her voice steady even as her body shook. "I'll get him back." Someone scoffed in the shadows. "You? Alone?" She turned, her eyes burning with something that silenced the doubt. "He is mine, and I will burn the stars themselves to bring him home." The colony had lost its soldier, but in that fire-lit ruin, something new was born. Not a girl hiding in fear, but a woman with a vow carved into her soul. Alara would not rest. She would not yield. Kale had been torn from her, but she would make the galaxy bleed before she let him go. The alien stronghold loomed against the horizon like a wound carved into the earth, black towers rising from jagged stone, each vein of their structure pulsing with a sickly green light. Alara crouched among the broken rocks, breath shallow, every sense alive with terror and determination. Around her, the ruins whispered with the voices of the dead, reminders of what awaited those who defied alien rule. And yet she pressed on, blade strapped to her thigh, stolen access codes clutched in her hand. Fear gnawed at her stomach, but her vow burned hotter. She would not leave without Kale. Getting inside had cost her blood. Patrols ambushed her more than once, and she carried bruises and cuts as proof. Yet each strike, each desperate struggle only fed the fire building inside her, a flame that had first sparked when Kale fell from the sky into her arms. Now it roared. The corridors of the stronghold stretched endless and cold, walls humming with alien energy. She moved like a shadow, timing her steps to the flicker of patrol lights, slipping through doors that should never have opened for her. Whispers of betrayal haunted her. Darren's smirk, the sight of Kale shackled and dragged away, but she buried them beneath her focus. There was no room for doubt now, only fire. At last, she reached the heart of the stronghold, a chamber lit by a dim, unnatural glow. Chains of radiant metal stretched across the room, binding a figure to the wall. Her breath caught. Kale. He hung slumped in the restraints, his body trembling with effort, but his skin glowed faintly beneath the grime, light flickering like a dying flame struggling against darkness. His chest rose and fell unevenly, and as her eyes adjusted, she saw the truth. The glow wasn't fading. It was building. Alara. His voice was hoarse, cracked, but when his eyes opened, fire burned inside them. She ran to him, her hands brushing his face, his shoulders, desperate to feel he was still real. "I thought." Her voice broke, tears threatening. "I thought they'd killed you." He gave a rough, humorless laugh. "They tried. But this, whatever they've done to me, it's changing. I can feel it. The fire inside, it's growing. I can't stop it." Her hands traced the chains, searching for a way to break them. The metal was alive, thrumming with alien power, pulsing in rhythm with his glow. She cursed under her breath. "We'll stop it together. You're not alone anymore." He shook his head, his jaw tight. "You don't understand. If it keeps building, I'll burn. Not just me, everything. I'll explode, Alara. A living firebomb. You should run before it happens." Her fingers dug into his jaw, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Don't you dare say that. Don't you dare push me away. You fell into my arms for a reason, Kale. And I'm not leaving you. Not now, not ever." Something in him broke at that, some wall he had built to shield her from the truth. His forehead pressed to hers, heat searing her skin but not consuming her. His breath was ragged. "I don't want to leave you. Not again. Alara, His words faltered, and for a heartbeat, vulnerability blazed brighter than any flame. Their lips met, desperate and fierce, a kiss stolen in the shadow of death. His heat surged into her, but instead of burning, It flowed through her like a river of fire finding its path. She gasped against him, her body trembling not with fear, but with something deeper, the connection between them igniting in truth. Alara. His voice broke, all bleeding into the fear. When you touch me, it steadies. The fire, it listens to you. How? Her hand pressed to his chest, feeling the inferno beneath his skin. Because it was never meant to destroy you. You just needed someone to hold it with you. The glow shifted. What had been wild, thrashing heat calmed under her touch. The raging tide of fire settling into rhythm. The chains that had bound him trembled, their alien power weakening as if her presence unraveled their hold. Kale's eyes widened. You're channeling it. I'm with you, she whispered. Always. With a shuddering groan, the chains cracked. Light flared where her hands gripped him, and one by one, the restraints broke apart. Kale stumbled forward, into her arms, still glowing but no longer at the brink of eruption. She held him tightly, her cheek pressed to his burning chest, her tears hissing away into steam. The chamber trembled as alarms blared. The aliens had sensed the breach. Kale's strength surged, his eyes no longer clouded by pain, but blazing with renewed fire. He kissed her again, quick and fierce, before drawing back, his voice steady for the first time since his capture. They'll come for us. Then we burned through them, she said, her grip tightening on his hand. Side by side, they turned toward the door as the first shadows approached, firelight dancing between them like a living promise. Whatever came next, it would not be faced apart. For the first time, Kale's fire did not feel like a curse. It was theirs, a bond forged in flame, sharpened by love, unstoppable. The rising fire had found its purpose, and together, they would make the stars themselves remember. The alien fleet spread across the sky like a shroud of night, their vessels blotting out the stars. From the stronghold's high ridge, Alara and Kale watched them descend, the colony caught in their shadow. Alarms wailed through the settlement below, families running for cover, soldiers readying weapons that seemed laughably small against the armada gathering above. The message had been clear: surrender, Kale, or the colony would be erased. Kale's jaw was set, eyes glowing faintly as the fire beneath his skin pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He looked more alive than he ever had before, yet Alara saw the truth in the lines of strain at the corners of his mouth. He wasn't just glowing, he was burning from the inside, his body straining to hold the storm. They won't stop, he said at last, voice low but steady. Not until they have me. And if I give myself to them, if I let them use me as their weapon, maybe it saves the colony. Maybe it buys humanity a little more time. No, Alara snapped, gripping his arm so tightly her nails bit into his skin. That's not saving us. That's slavery. They'll twist you, break you, turn your fire against the very people you bled to protect. I won't let them take you. His gaze softened, but his resolve didn't waver. And what's the alternative? That I lose control? That I burn the colony myself before they ever set foot on the ground? Alara, I can feel it. The fire wants out. I don't have long. Her chest tightened. She had known this truth, buried it under her determination, but hearing it now was like a blade sliding between her ribs. Then we'll find a way. Together. You don't get to decide this alone. Kale cupped her face, his hand hot but tender, his thumb brushing her cheek as though memorizing every detail. You saved me more than once. From them, from myself. If I die now, I die knowing I loved you. And that was enough. Tears welled in her eyes. Don't you dare talk like that. Loving me isn't enough if it means losing you. The colony loudspeakers crackled, alien words hissing like venom, translated seconds later into the human's tongue. Surrender the ember and live. Refuse and burn. Kale pulled away, stepping forward to the edge of the ridge, his fire flickering brighter, curling around his arms like ribbons of flame. He looked every bit the weapon they feared, and yet every bit the man she loved. He closed his eyes, inhaling deeply, preparing himself. She knew then. He was about to do it, to release everything, to become a living son that would take the aliens with him. It would end the fleet? Yes, but it would end him too. No, she cried, running to him, seizing his arm. He turned, and she didn't give him the chance to argue. She pressed her lips to his in a kiss that burned, desperate, furious. Her body pressed to his, her hands sliding up to his face, his shoulders. Heat surged through her, searing, almost unbearable, yet she clung to him, refusing to let go. Alara, his voice cracked against her mouth. If I stay, I'll kill you. Then let me burn with you, she whispered fiercely, because I won't live in a world without you. Something shifted then, something deeper than flesh and fire. Her love poured into him, not soft but fierce, not fragile but unbreakable. The fire didn't lash out this time. It bent. It listened. It became not just his burden, but theirs. They sank to their knees together, foreheads pressed, hearts hammering. Around them the air shimmered with light, the ground trembling under the weight of what they were becoming. Her touch steadied his power, anchored his storm. And in that moment of surrender, body and spirit, their love became the forge. The fire erupted. It wasn't wild destruction. It was a storm of light, guided by their joined will. Flames surged outward, sweeping the sky, burning across the alien fleet like dawn itself had taken shape in Kale's hands. Warships crumpled in silence, their hulls melting into ash. Engines died mid-flight, explosions cascading as the firestorm consumed everything that had threatened the colony. The night became brighter than day, and at its center, Kale and Alara held each other, not destroyed by the inferno, but remade by it. She felt his fear dissolve, replaced by awe, as if her love had woven itself into the very fire that once sought to destroy him. When the last alien ship fell, silence followed. Not the silence of despair, but the silence of survival. The colony lay bathed in the glow of their victory, wide-eyed colonists watching from the ruins as the impossible unfolded. Kale sagged against her, breath ragged, his glow dimming but steady. "You anchored me," he whispered, almost unbelieving. "You anchored us," she corrected, pressing her forehead to his. "We don't fight alone anymore. Not ever." He kissed her again, softer this time, lingering, as if afraid to let the world intrude. Around them, the ashes of the alien fleet rained down like falling stars. For the first time, Kale's fire had not demanded his death. For the first time, their love had turned sacrifice into survival. And yet, deep in Alara's heart, she knew the storm wasn't over. What they had unleashed was more than victory. It was a warning. To the colony, to the galaxy, to the aliens who had thought humanity weak. The ember had become a flame, and together, they had burned the night away. The smoke still curled across the horizon, a dark veil draped over a world that had nearly been lost. The alien fleet no longer blotted the stars. Only drifting wreckage remained, burning like funeral pyres in the void above. The ground still trembled with the echoes of the firestorm he had unleashed, yet amidst that silence, she searched, heart pounding, desperate for the one who had fallen into her life like a star. When the dust parted, she saw him. He stood amid the ruin, his body no longer fully human, veins glowing faintly beneath skin that shimmered like molten glass, his eyes alight with eternal flame. The heat rolled off him in waves, dangerous, divine, and yet when she drew closer, he trembled not with fury, but with fear. Fear that she would recoil, that she would see him as something monstrous. Instead, she stepped into the fire without hesitation. Her hands touched his chest, unflinching, feeling the strange heat of his heart, the wild flame caged within his body. His breath hitched, a sound of disbelief and need, and he crumpled forward, collapsing in her arms just as he had the night he fell from the sky. The weight of him, the feel of his trembling frame pressed against her, undid her completely. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered into his ear that she had never once thought of letting go. Around them, the colonists emerged slowly from hiding places in caves and ruins, their eyes wide, their voices hushed. They had watched fire fall from heaven. They had seen two figures, a girl and the burning soldier, stand against an empire. And now they saw not destruction, but the beginning of something unyielding. She held him as though anchoring him to life, her small frame dwarfed by his blazing aura. And when he finally raised his head, their gazes locked, the world falling away until only they existed. "You should not touch me," he whispered, his voice rough, threaded with sorrow. "I am not what I was. I may never be again." Her lips brushed his cheek, fierce and defiant. "You are mine, human or flame, broken or whole. I will never let you go." Something inside him broke, not in despair, but in surrender. The last of his defenses, built on loss and fear, crumbled beneath the weight of her vow. He drew her closer, forehead resting against hers, the glow of his eyes softening as though her touch dimmed the storm raging inside. Around them, silence thickened. Then, one by one, voices rose, colonists chanting, whispering, repeating a name they had not spoken in years. His, a name tied to the old resistance, a name now carried in awe as if reborn. The legend was no longer of soldiers dying in vain, but of a fallen warrior who rose again because love refused to let him burn alone. Together, they had lit a fire the aliens could not extinguish. Together, they had proved humanity's spirit was more than flesh, more than fear. It was defiance. It was survival. It was love that could turn flame into a weapon and a weapon into a man. He kissed her then, before them all, not as a warrior marking the end of war, but as a man surrendering to the one who had caught him from the sky and held him through fire. The heat of it seared away doubt, branding her as his anchor, his salvation. She clung to him, not caring that the air around him shimmered, that every beat of his heart carried the promise of something inhuman. She wanted it all, the fire, the danger, the eternity written in his burning gaze. And as night fell, the ruins glowed not with fear, but with the first sparks of hope. Songs began, low and uncertain at first, then louder, swelling into the sound of a people who had not been broken. At the center of it all, he stood with her hand in his, fire flickering in his veins, love steady in his chest. No longer alone, no longer lost. He had fallen from the sky into her arms, and there he would remain, not for a moment, but for all the nights to come. Their embrace became more than comfort. It became a vow, eternal and unshakable, to burn, to rise, to defy, to love. And as their silhouettes merged in the firelight, the colony knew this was not the end of a war. It was the beginning of a legend, a story that would be told as long as stars burned in the sky, of a soldier reborn in flame,